So let's get started. I want to kick it off with first a very strong woohoo! Last panel of the day, right? And it's going to be one of the best ones. I'm really excited. Again, I'm Pam Harlin. I'm the director of the Meemic Foundation, and I am so honored to be able to introduce everyone to our panel of Michigan Regional Teachers of the Year for 2020-2021. These regional teachers of the year, they're just like you. They're in their classrooms, whether they're teaching from school or teaching from homes, like many of you are, and they're facing the same challenges with the same questions and the same needs. So we'll spend the next 45 minutes. We'll be chatting, we'll be listening, we'll be learning, we'll be sharing. We will learn from each other. So let's go ahead and get started with that. You don't want to hear from me for sure. Let's listen and let's talk to the various panelists here. So to begin, I will ask each panelist to state their name, their school and their city, the grade and subject that they teach. And we will start with Tan-A. If you could go ahead, that would be great. Hi.
Awesome. Hi guys. I am Tan-A Hoffman, Ani. I am a Bojo. I am from Bawating, which is Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. And I am a second grade teacher at JKL Bawating Anishinaabe Public School Academy. We are a public school academy that is chartered through Northern Michigan University. And in collaboration with the Bureau of Indian Education, we then also create a wonderful learning environment that includes culture, as well as Common Core state standards and opportunities for students. So I'm a second grade teacher, and I absolutely love teaching in the Upper Peninsula.
Wonderful. Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Soper. I'm from Jackson, Michigan, at a school called Northwest Community Schools. It's a rural school in our county. We are actually in person most times, so I actually had to take today off, so I'm at home, but we do have virtual kids learning online, but then I'm there 4 days a week with in-person kids. And a lot of them came back. So we're busy, and I'm trying hard to figure out how to be with my, I'm a high school teacher, so I have about anywhere from 15 to 25 in-person kids per class, and then I have an additional 50 online. So I'm in the world of navigating that, as we are all navigating this crazy time.
Very good. Thank you, Sarah. Chelsee.
Hey, I am Chelsee Schram. I work at Langsburg Elementary in Langsburg, Michigan, which is near Lansing, kind of between Lansing and Flint. It's a very rural district. I teach second grade, and I have students face-to-face in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I meet with my virtual students. So we're on a half-day schedule.
Wonderful. Barb.
Hi, I'm Barb Huston. I'm a third grade teacher at Arrowwood Elementary, which is part of Saginaw Township Community Schools. And I'm in a 3-5 building. We are in a soft start right now, so we're kind of in a hybrid model where we've split my class of 24 in half into an A day and a B day. So I'm live with kids face to face on the A day, and then supporting my B group through Google Classroom, and then we flip. So yeah, a lot of juggling.
That's the name of the day for sure. Let's switch over to Elizabeth then.
Hi, I'm Liz Hineset. I teach at Portage Central High School in Portage, Michigan. I'm an art teacher and a creativity teacher, and currently we are teaching solely remotely with a small group of students that go into school for support, and they work with support staff. So it's been an exciting challenge for this year.
We appreciate all you guys for everything you do so much. Erin.
Hi, I'm Erin Carlson. I teach at Sandusky Junior Senior High School in Sandusky, Michigan. We are very rural in the thumb of Michigan. I teach 7th and 8th grade STEM and 11th grade English. We have about 80% of our students face-to-face. It's actually my 5th hour right now, so I'm in a conference room while a sub has my 5th hour. And we have 20% of our kids are face-to-face, or I'm sorry, are virtual. So we do the best we can kind of after hours because we're still on a full day schedule to meet with the virtual kids and support them the best we can.
Thank you, Erin. Janine.
Hey everybody, my name is Janine Scott. I am a master teacher and a teacher at Detroit Public Schools Community District, Davis Aerospace Technical High School. I teach math, and I am currently full-time virtual, although every once in a while I show up at the school. We have a learning center at our school, and so on Fridays is my day to show up in full gear. I've got my mask and my shield and somebody tells me I look like one of the Ghostbusters because I got a jumpsuit too. And we have a great time. Excited to be here today.
We're so excited to have all you guys.
Where's my
And
mask?
last but not least, Owen.
Hello again. My name is Owen Bondono. I teach in Oak Park. I teach 9th grade English, and we are currently full-time virtual for now. Fingers crossed we remain that way until it's safe, but that's our current sitch.
So once again, you guys, thank you so much for participating. This is going to be very insightful discussion. And as we've already discussed beforehand, that, I'll look for you. If you wouldn't mind, maybe just kind of raise your hand so that we're not too much talking over each other. But I might call you out too. So stand ready as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Right. So really, let's just start with the basic question. Describe what you're seeing in your schools today, the type of bullying that you're seeing, and your thoughts regarding your students' understanding of bullying in the schools. So can we start? Anyone wants to start that off?
Sure, I don't mind.
Chelsee, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I always have things to say. So I teach in an elementary setting, so I know my viewpoint on this is going to be a little bit different than a high school setting. A lot of what I see with our students is not them intentionally being mean. I think sometimes they're doing things that they see on TV or in their video games or even at home. And a lot of the conflicts that we have can be resolved through peer-to-peer conversations and having that guided through staff. I know in my area, one of the issues that we're having is the cyberbullying, and I was tuned in for the last bit of the last speaker, and we don't have a social worker in our school district right now. We had one, but with the COVID situation, she left the position, so that makes it really difficult to have an outside person meet with those students. So I know the rural school districts in this area are just really struggling with cyberbullying because we don't have enough resources to manage that right now.
I would have to repeat. I would have to, if you don't mind me just jumping in. Absolutely, because we're both in that lower elementary setting. It's more of hearing things from older siblings. Or parents even, I think, and then just repeating those things that are said and not having any understanding of what those words, when they're put together, actually mean. And so when you sit down and have a conversation with them and ask them, you said this, what do you think that means? They really have no understanding of that. So bringing it back to, well, you said this, and then you hurt somebody's feelings. So bringing it back to that understanding of possible restitution and what do I need to do now that I've hurt somebody else's feelings is kind of in 2nd grade where they're kind of at.
I'll jump in too. I'm high school, and so even though it's different with high school, I've been there for 16 years in the same building, and definitely when I first started, there was like very overt racism. We had, I'm sorry, bullying, but like we had racial fights. People were overtly cruel to our LGBTQ community. And that has really declined so much. And I mean, like, that's our positive note, is it is getting better. And students are, especially about like those minority groups and whatnot, like students are so much better with them. And so like, that is a huge positive. Unfortunately, there's that racism and that bullying that tends to happen that is not overt, and kids once again don't even realize it. Like, I've now talked to some of my students of color who have graduated, and they have said, you know, like, Northwest was great and the teachers were great, but here's some comments that I heard on a daily basis that even my friends said to me. You know, it's that like, oh, I'm just kidding, you know, oh, well, you're the Black kid, oh, just kidding, like, you're not the only Black kid, like that type of thing. And so it's like bringing awareness to how that can also be bullying. And it's not just the overt, like, you know, pushing a kid in the hallway, or, you know, saying like really bad words to them. And so that's where we're trying to, and unfortunately in the last few years, I think it's gotten a little worse. You know, we've kind of went up and then went down again. And so that's where we need to go from here, is that those things can be hurtful too.
And I'll add to that too. Living in a very rural area where a lot of opinions are very similar, especially this year with the election. I find that if you have a differing opinion from the majority of our population, then there's a lot of heat and bullying that's taking place because of that. And so helping kids understand, you know, just because your parents or you hear this in the community, this is who you think you should support, you still need to respect everyone's opinion and do your own research instead of spouting your viewpoints because everyone else said that around you. So I think right now that is our biggest issue here, bullying because of political positions.
Mm-hmm.
And to add a suburban lens to it, because I'm at a predominantly white suburban district, we actually had to address something we never thought we would have to address. And that is their little icon pictures that they have when their cameras aren't on for remote learning. And we spent time at the beginning of the year, and actually our administrators made a video demonstrating how to change your icon picture, because so many people had them that were overtly racist, offensive. The meme culture has really started to dominate it. And so it's that, not like Sarah was saying, it's not that overt racism, it's that subtle racism that is disguised as humor. And the just kidding culture is quite dominant.
It blows my mind as a third grade, you know, a 3-5 building, and being the youngest grade in our building. How many of my students will want to share their social media site with another student, and they're 8? And it's like, you shouldn't have a Facebook page. You shouldn't have an Instagram page. You shouldn't, you know, be on Snapchat, but they are. And we are lucky enough in Saginaw Township that we partnership with the township police, and we actually have a program where our police liaison come and talk, and at 3rd grade is the one where they speak really candidly with our students that you leave a digital footprint. And it kind of goes back as far as stranger danger type thing, but then it moves on to what you say is forever out there. And so it kind of goes into the next step as far as bullying and the way they have a conversation using their technology. And I think that helps. But is it perfect? No. Do we have 4th grader who was putting out some really awful things on her social media? Yes. Did it get taken care of quickly through the school? Yes, it did.
So I want to come in really quick. Sarah, when you were talking, it hit home because I grew up in Lansing and went to school in integrated school, and a lot of my friends were white, and I was always that Black friend. I was always that student that not always, but I was sometimes that student that couldn't come over. And I was sometimes that student that things happened to. So it's amazing when you talk about microaggressions, and in my mind, it never ever hurt me because my friends were my friends. And as I became an adult, I started hearing certain things. I even remember teachers who would tell me, you're not like the rest of them. I'm going to help you because you're so smart and you're so nice, but you're not like the rest of them. And I'm going to do whatever I can do. And later in my life, things hit me like, wait, who's them? And what happened? So now that I teach in Detroit, which is a predominantly Black district with a few others, the bullying that takes place in our building is a little bit different. For the most part, the bullying that I hear about is gay. That's gay. You're gay. They don't even use the F word. And maybe it's because it's a whole different generation. But they're like, that's gay. You're gay. We had to have a whole building conversation last year. And I was like, I don't know what teacher y'all think you're talking in, whose class you're talking in. This is my class. And what people do in their lives is their business. I'm not about to hear any of it. But then we had to stop because I'm one of those teachers. I'm a yeller. I yell all day. And so I had to stop and pull back because I found out that my yelling wasn't working. And I was like, guys, do you even have a clue that we have students in here who that hurts? As a student who came into my room, one of my girls brought him and he just was like, I don't do anything to them. I don't mess with them. I'm a good person. And I just want to start with all this gay. Then he started cursing. And then he very nicely said, I don't know if you've ever noticed, Miss Scott, because you act like you don't notice anything. I identify as bisexual and maybe sometimes gay and sometimes not. And, you know, and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, oh, wow, oh, well, I guess I didn't notice, honey, because I just kind of love you for who you are. So I had to give him a hug and I talked to him and I said, we'll have a better conversation. That's what pulled me back as a teacher, because kids normally don't act up in my class and they don't bully in my class. So a lot of times I don't see it. When he said that to me, we did. And I talked to the teachers. We had to have multiple conversations. And I said, you guys don't know who you're hurting. You don't know how many gay friends I have. You don't know if I've got any family members. You don't know my personal life. Do you know what my spouse looks like? You're married, Miss Scott? You're married? None of your business. But if it were your business, do you know? And then one of them said, you know what? We forgot. One of the teachers has a gay son. He probably came to you and talked to you about it, didn't he, Miss Scott? Not just one of the teachers, two of the teachers. The kids start, and wait a minute, my cousin is gay. That whole conversation came out. In our school, I don't think we shut it down, but we did tone it down a whole lot. And they started watching their language. But it was it was very weird to me because the few white kids who go to our school, they don't get messed with at all. Nobody calls them names. Nobody does anything, you know, but it's just, that's the big thing. You're gay. And it was amazing. That's like bullying that kind of sucks to me. Not kind of, really sucks to me.
Yeah.
I have a similar demographic and situation in my school. And I would say too, that one of the nice things is that the students don't think of themselves for the most part as being homophobic. And if you were to ask them about their views, they would say like, oh, I have no problem with people being gay. People can be whoever they want, blah, blah, blah. And so there's a disconnect between that thought and the words that are coming out of their mouths sometimes. And so what I'm often doing is I'm just making that link explicit for them. When they say those things, when they say that's gay, when they say like, when they get something twisted or whatever, and they say something wrong, my job is to stop in that moment and say, hey, I don't think you realize that's homophobic. Do you know that? And then we talk about why it is. I feel once per year, I tell the history of the F word and how it came from a bundle of sticks used to start a fire, because back in the day, you burned gay people at the stake. And so when you call someone the F slur, you're actually saying, I want to burn you alive. And all my kids go, oh, I didn't mean that. I didn't realize that. And they have this moment where they realize what they're really saying. So for a lot of kids, it's making explicit that connection between this belief that they hold about themselves and the reality of what's coming out of their mouths.
To move on, or not to move on, but to kind of collaborate with what Owen is saying, as a fourth grade teacher a couple of years ago, I ended up actually having to have communication and email and send letters home to parents because communication and things that were being said on the playground, like lesbian, people that live on our reservation that were or being called gay or lesbians, of course. And, you know, putting those two minoritized individuals or peoples together then to create a situation in which hurting other people. Yeah, it's just astounding to me because then you have to sit down and talk with them. And we had that whole class discussion. You realize you're Native American. Now let's think about the atrocities. Your land, our land has been stolen from us from the 1836 treaty. You now can't do the things that your ancestors used to do. And here we are in a school where you are now telling other people and doing the same thing that, that has been done to you. And so the situation, yeah, is just, it's unimaginable. It just, but making those connections, Owen, it's getting students to understand, and especially fourth graders. They're just quite honestly repeating what older brothers and older sisters are saying, and continuing, unfortunately, that negative connotation and more of that bullying piece that's happening through language rather than that physical bullying these days.
It's about the conversation, right? If you know better, you do better. And so sometimes when if you shut it down, if you panic and you shut it down, oh, we don't talk like that. In here, they never do better because they don't know better. So educating them, giving them the history, talking about it, showing them the cause and effect in the point of view of others, that's when the change is going to take place.
Such a good point. And I especially feel like some of those kids, you can't call them out right there in class because they'll get defensive, and that's like the worst way. And I've done this before, and my friend who teaches across the hall, and she teaches history, and she specifically teaches World History East. So they talk about, you know, the Middle East and a lot of these things, and they come up, and she does an excellent job, especially with some of our like tougher, not to be stereotypical, but like rural boys who really don't know a lot of people besides their white friends. She does a great job of, and I've tried to do the same, but of pulling them out into the hallway and explaining to them why the words they're saying is not okay, and explaining to them the history of it. And like Owen, like you were saying. And so sometimes not even having a full group conversation, right? But having that like one-on-one conversation with them that's a lot more casual, that can go a lot further than just saying, no, this isn't okay because this is a rule in our building, right? So I think that if we can have those moments with them individually too, that's really important too.
You know, one of the things that I'm seeing right now is, as you guys know, we had like a list of different questions that was put together to help kind of drive conversation. But what's happening is that your responses and your insight into what's going on is driving quite a few questions from those that are in the audience. And so knowing what our time is looking like, I hope you guys don't mind, but I do want to jump to those questions just to I want to honor them. I think that they're really great. And again, you guys inspired these questions. So one I have here, and I'm going to kind of go back from the beginning, Claire from Cincinnati wants to know if elementary school age students see the bullying behavior evolve over the years. So can you pick which kids will go from unkind behavior to traditional bullying behavior? Anyone have any thoughts on that?
For me, I think it's the reverse. For me, if you see the at-risk student, the student who is not confident, the student who is struggling academically, and they're comparing themselves, they're not feeling good about themselves. And so they have to draw attention, negative attention on somebody else. Those are the students that if they're the bully on the playground, those are the ones that we're seeing are also using technology. So they evolved from the traditional bully to using technology, not backwards. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you so much, Bart. Anyone else?
My initial thought with that question was, it'd be really irresponsible for me to label a kid a bully. And then I, kept diving deeper into my thoughts and connected with what Barb was saying. Like, yes, there are some at-risk kids that are just dying for attention and they're going to do whatever they have to do. I still am struggling with labeling them as bullies. And remember, I have second graders, so they're 7 and 8 years old. I think that's a pretty big label to put on a 7-year-old. I think there's some indicators that we can see, but I think we also have to be really cautious of asking ourselves, why are those actions happening? And I think that's our responsibility as the teachers. Like, why is the student acting this way? Why is the student saying something mean? Even if they heard it at home, why are they repeating it?
Well, and I want to kind of speak to the trauma piece. When we think about bullying, we've got to add trauma into that. And I think that when we think about second graders and we think about even the 3 to 5 elementary, we're thinking about this is a reaction to some kind of trauma. And so I don't want to say, and you're right, I don't like necessarily the bullying piece. I can, in my head, envision a student that was having trauma and outwardly acting the trauma that the child was experiencing, yes, on somebody else. Behavior, that's when we as teachers need to really step up our game with our tier 2, our tier 1, our tier 3 behavior interventions. I mean, we unfortunately I am blessed to have the support system at my school with social workers and intervention specialists. But we really have to kind of solve our own problems sometimes in education and figuring out what those tiered interventions and what our best practice for those tiered interventions. I mean, that's my responsibility. That poor soul is in my classroom and I've got to do everything in my possible care to be able to protect that child from themselves now and from themselves later, and then the other people that they might injure or hurt unintentionally because of the trauma that's being done to them. So I think of it more as a trauma response in that situation.
I would say in a rural area too, that where I'm from, most of the students start kindergarten together and end 12th grade together. So if there is a clique, and we do have cliques of groups of kids that continually go up through the grade levels, it's hard for a kid if they've been bullied at a younger age or are feeding off of that. It's hard to get away from that because there aren't other classes or ways to get away from that situation. So I think that intensifies it.
Thanks, Erin. Let me jump on to another question. Brett from Windsor wants to know what you would do when you see the subtle racism, but the intended victim doesn't notice it. Without putting the victim on the spot, what would you do?
I think that would be me pulling a kid aside situation again, right? Like I would say, hey, I know that maybe I'm sure this isn't the way that you meant it, but this is what I heard. But I wouldn't want, like you said, the intended victim to know. So that would be like an outside conversation, in the hall conversation, just a little bit of like, catch it just for a minute. And I also wouldn't want to, once again, confront that kid too much, because I wouldn't want them to become more aggressive with it, so just kind of making them aware of that and saying, just think about how that could make someone else feel. And once again, it's a high school kid, so they probably know a little bit, but I just think that one-on-one conversation is a really key piece with some of those types of kids.
Yeah, and I same thing. And if you are also, I think, encountering that student, even one-on-one, is a little bit resistant to your conversation, one of the things that I've done that's been fairly successful has been to say to that student, like, I see by these measures, maybe the lack of eye contact, maybe your body language, maybe the way that your tone is or whatever, I see by this indicator that you're not ready to have this conversation right now, but I still think this conversation is really important. So I want to leave you with a question to think about. And then I might ask a question like you were saying, Sarah, like, how do you think this person would feel? And I'll say, oh, we'll talk about that when you're ready. And sometimes that means pulling them aside every day for a week until we have that conversation, because they're finally like, okay, fine, let's talk about it. So you can stop pulling me in the hallway. But I think that it's important to acknowledge that they have to be in the right place too to receive it, and that it's okay if it's not on your timeline.
And I'm just going to piggyback on one more thing. This is something that I did not learn it in school for education. And so all of you new teachers, you need to know this is, and it's especially oftentimes they say with male boys, but it's really good to talk to them like side to side and not face to face, because they feel confrontational. And so if you're out in the hallway, you should really just kind of like put your back against the locker and have the kid do the same thing and not confront them one-to-one, because it brings down their I don't know, their aggression, or they don't feel as confrontational that way. And when I started doing that with some of my struggling, and like Tana, I say, like, you know, trauma, students who had experienced trauma, things got a world better. So make sure you try that.
And to do piggyback as an elementary, go low. The elementary teacher should not stand up and talk down to a child. So go low, sit down, go to your knees, so that you're on the same level. You're not superior and sending that message.
That's exactly what I was texting Barb, was get on your knees and get below their eye level. Yep.
Another question. Barb in Tulsa wants to know how the panel feels when they meet with a parent who doesn't see the issue around bullying or harassment. How do you handle it? In particular, when you don't have admin support. I see some smiles up there.
I just want to weigh in on this one. A lot of times you sit as a teacher and wonder where your children get their behavior, and then you meet their parents. And then you understand where they get their behavior. And so one of the things that I do, and a very wise teacher once taught me this, is when you speak with parents, you set their expectations at where they think their expectations are. And what I mean by that is, when I'm running into a student who's a super bully or super mean, or just not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and then I meet their parent, and I'm short, so all parents look like this at me. So when I'm up looking at them, I say, you know, I just know that in your household, these things are not tolerated. And I can tell by the way that when I talk to your child that they've been raised a certain way to a certain standard. So I know you understand when I say that these things are just not appropriate in school and will not be dealt with or will be dealt with appropriately. So I'm going to need you to back me up, because I know that you do these things in your house. It's amazing when you know good and well the parents don't necessarily do those things in their house. They're like, absolutely, absolutely, Miss Scott, I'm gonna talk to them, because that doesn't go on in my house. And whether it goes on in your house or not, you know good and well that your student is out of order. And people tell me this all the time. A student, your child might not be the same person as that teacher's student, because they have different personalities for different parts. You have different personality in church, different personality at home, different personality at grandma's, different personality at school. And so I always talk to the parents and let them know that I'm on your side. I understand that you are raising your child and it's tough. And then the other thing I do as a teacher, and I have to do this with sincerity, is I tell the parent, thank you for your child with their uniqueness. You know, we always tell on kids when they're bad, but we very seldom tell on kids when they're good. So I want to thank you for your child, because even though that behavior was totally and completely inappropriate, every single morning your child says, hey, Miss Scott, good morning, and gives me a wave. That means a lot to me.
And that same behavior goes a really long way with the kids too. Starting with something positive and trying to end with something positive, to just let them know that you're always a support system for them.
Very good.
I was gonna say, I think if you
go ahead, please.
Assuming that it's gonna be a power struggle, you're creating a power struggle and you're probably going to lose it. So like what Janine was saying, create a partnership. And that's exactly what you would want to do with students. So avoid the power struggle. They love their kid. If they didn't love their kid, well, I don't know if any parent doesn't love their kid, so acknowledge that. And they showed up, they made the effort to contact you. So praise them for that, because that goes a long way and that means a lot.
At the same time, though, know for your own well-being that there are people that you will have trouble reaching and that you may not be able to reach. You're not their person, and that's okay. I'm thinking specifically about an incident that happened in my building where a child called a teacher the F slur, and their parent was called into the office to have a conversation. And at first, the parent was saying, my child would never do this. The teacher must be lying, blah, blah, blah. And then as soon as they were confronted with evidence that their child had in fact done this, the story switched to, well, that teacher is an F word, so why should she have to listen to him? And so that was a situation where, as a teacher, you just kind of have to go, this conversation's not for me. And you have to step away from it, let other people handle it, and know that this may be someone that you can't reach, or at least can't reach right away. I'm a kill 'em with kindness person, so I would still consistently contact that parent, tell them the great thing their kids are doing, from a safe distance, or with admin with you, or another teacher with you, or something. Don't be alone in a room with a parent where you have that kind of interaction. But continuing to try and show them that you may have treated me or my coworker this way, your child may have treated me or my coworker this way, but I still love your child and I still want them to learn and grow. That goes a long way. But know that there will be people you can't reach. That's just the reality of life.
I want to switch over to another question. This has come up in a couple of different ways, from Karen in Wyoming, as well as Megan in Grand Haven. How do you address bullying and harassment when students use their religion as a way to defend it, where they see the leader of the free world, where they see they've got an excuse for it, and that's coming up more and more in a lot of different ways. How do you address that?
Oh, and you got to take this because you already talked about it earlier.
Yeah, I don't get into arguments with people about religion. That just doesn't work out for anybody involved. But I'm all about humanizing the issue. Regardless of whether or not you believe that it's right or okay to be any certain kind of way, it's not right or okay to make any individual feel like less, or to feel like they are unappreciated or unwelcome or unsupported. And I talk about, like I said in my presentation, I talk about some of those statistics if it has to do with LGBTQ students, about the mental health dangers that come with not being accepted for who you are. And I talk about, it's our job to support the people around us, whether it's our classmates, whether it's our children, whomever it is, it's our job to support and love the people around us. And so I don't care if you don't think that it's right for them to be that way. Your job is still to make them feel welcome in our school.
Let's talk about, because this is also coming up a little bit different ways, but I'll specifically speak to Alex in Boston, who has the question regarding what your bullying prevention programs are that you're using in your schools and what impact they have. So what's working?
We don't have one.
Okay.
We don't have one.
We had an initiative called Stop the Bull that a couple of years ago it was run through different mental health programs and departments in our area. All the kids got bright orange shirts that said Stop the Bull, and they tried to do a social media campaign through that. I have a couple of community service groups that are over 100 kids in our almost 500 student district. So it's quite a few of the population. And if I can use those kids, they're out in the community, they're involved, and a lot of times some of them are athletes that are kind of influencers. So that campaign did help pull a lot of kids in and at least raise some awareness to it. I'm not saying that it helped completely, but I think part of it is helping to raise the awareness. So those free t-shirts went over pretty big with the kids, and they do still wear them sometimes. Food and free things usually help to bring kids together. But I did create a little group called Here to Make a Change. And it was just a population of kids that wanted to help continue to spread that message. It does fizzle out here and there, and you have to really be proactive in maintaining stuff like that. But I think raising awareness is a big thing.
I think, unfortunately, a lot of our students think of bullying as a buzzword now. If they want to get a certain reaction from a teacher or from admin, or if they want to, sometimes the word bullying is used to bully other kids. They've got a kid they have a problem with, and that kid is messing with them or whatever, so they're going to go report them for bullying, because they know that if they report them for bullying, it'll trigger a set of actions that are more extreme than just saying this kid is messing with me, or I don't like this kid, or whatever else. And so I think for our students, they kind of roll their eyes at the word bullying in like different initiatives. They kind of like, oh, another assembly from whatever, But what works, I think, is building that community with your students in your classroom and in your school, building a place where it's not acceptable to bring other people down. And going back to what Erin said, I think building a community where you have some students who, like, as corny as this is going to sound, make it genuinely uncool to bully. If you can make that uncool, like, that's half the battle. But yeah, I think that building community in a genuine way works better than any prescriptive program may, especially because a lot of our kids have learned to weaponize the word bullying.
We do
You guys, this is.
Go ahead.
I think that's a
Chelsee?
fantastic question, and I would encourage parents to ask the school board that question. I mean, a lot of us that are here, like, we're doing everything we can, and especially this year, like, I'm teaching online, I'm teaching face-to-face, I'm trying to manage the cyberbullying, and it's exhausting, and every teacher is going to do everything that they possibly can, but we do need help. So that's a fantastic school board question. How are we supporting teachers in this? How can the community help support this? Because like Owen was saying, we have to create the classroom community, but we also have a bigger community than that. And like, we need your help.
I would also like to add, like, we don't have a bullying program either at JKL Bowating, but what we do have are 7 grandfather teachings. And that is something that we're not only teaching in our classrooms, in that we're constantly bringing our read alouds, and we're constantly incorporating into our Common Core standards with literacy, reading and writing portions, and our story elements, but that we're also, before COVID, every month we come together and have an assembly where then our culture teacher, one of our culture teacher, our culture director, then has one of the grade levels do a presentation on that specific grandfather teaching. For instance, right now we're doing respect. That always starts out the year. And so the full month of October, everything, not everything, but the majority of the read alouds that I try to do in the classroom will center around respect and how does somebody show respect. And then, so how does, and that will move throughout the year when we think about respect and truth and wisdom, humility and courage and honesty. And so, when we're kind of adding all of those pieces, we're also adding, especially at a 2nd grade level, how are you as a person, how are your characters in your stories? How are you as a person? How are you making those connections? And then how are you in your writing? What kind of person is this in your writing? And you're talking about all of those other character traits. And so those are important pieces to make sure that we add to help kids also recognize and understand and connect with characters in literacy, and then they get to understand themselves and how they can connect with other characters through books and through stories. But through this type of topic, they can have possibly or unfortunately a shared experience depending on the topic of discussion.
Everyone, I so hate to do this, but our time is up. I wanted to give everyone, though, a chance to give like one sentence, because we're right at 1 o'clock. A quick wrap up or just to say goodbye. So I'll just call you out, let you do that, and then we'll wrap up the session. Thanks to everyone that had provided questions. But Elizabeth, if we could start with you.
I would just say I would my favorite t-shirt, which I don't happen to be wearing, I'm wearing my second favorite t-shirt, but my favorite t-shirt says, believe there is good, and inside of it, it is be the good.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Erin.
That is hanging in my classroom, that painting. So yeah, and stay strong. It's tough, but stay strong.
Thank you, Erin. Barb.
The more proactive you are, the less reactive you need to be.
Wonderful. Chelsee.
We all need to work together. We are all working together. So let's just keep doing that. I think that was 3 sentences.
Tan-A. Yep.
Anishinaabe Bamata was in. Live the Anishinaabe good life. Living those grandfather teachings.
Thanks. Sarah.
I'm also going to talk about a poster. I have one in my classroom that says hate has no home here. I don't know if you can see it. And if you can't, but if you go to hatehasnohomehere.org, there are posters and things, and I have it right by my American flag, and it has it in all different languages to show that all different types of people are supported and welcome in my classroom.
Thank you, Sarah. Janine.
Well, I would say just to love and respect your students. They will love and respect you back. And then guess what? They'll listen. They'll hear you. Even when you think they don't, they'll hear you.
And Owen. Thank you, Janine.
I would just say every time you have one of these conversations, one of these moments in your classroom, remember that you are modeling for your students how to have those conversations and those moments away from you too.
Everyone, our Michigan Regional Teachers of the Year. Thank you guys so much. That was tremendous. And I'm going to hand this right back over to Kevin. Thank you.
Before you leave, I want to say thank you for everything you do in our classrooms across the state to help our children in every way that you possibly can. So thank you. And there's a reason why every one of you is a Teacher of the Year. So thank you very, very much.